around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started, it's the hardest. Talk around, don't disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling, welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, and this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back. Yeah.
Ooh. What's up, everybody? It's your boy, the hardest part of the ring, better known as Kyle. Welcome to the Apron Bump, and ooh, man, do we got a doozy for you today. Oh, suck me dry. This show can eat my ass. That was a lot of just vulgar language in a row. I'm sorry. In Your House 3. Deservingly so, because this show is very vulgar on the eyes. WWF In Your House 3 triple header. Man, I know what you're thinking. You're like, that hardest part of the ring. He's probably going to come in here with... All right. I was going to... Here, look, listen. I'm going to tell you what just happened there. I was going to, try to formulate, a shitty blowjob joke, because it's, triple header, right? Fellatio. It's fun, right? But then right just there, I was like, come in here, and then, it's like, come, so... yeah. So Jean-Pierre Lafitte is here. Speaking of pirates. But anyways, so In Your House 3 triple header is called triple header because all of the championships are on the line in the main event. Yeah, all the titles in one match. So you got Diesel, the WWF champion, teaming up with the Intercontinental Champion, Shawn Michaels, to face the Tag Team Champions. And that's a whole thing. We'll get into it. Yoko's there. Owen's there. Bulldog's there. Jim Cornette's there. Mr. Fuji's there. All of Camp Cornette is there. That's a whole running thread. We'll get into it. But you might be asking yourself, well, THPTR, if all the titles are in one match, well, what's the rest of the card look like? Well, let me tell you. We finally get to the bottom of who stole Bret Hart's jacket. the I guess infamous would be the word storyline with Jean-Pierre Lafitte, better known as nowadays as PCO. He's a pirate who stole Bret Hart's jacket. And now that's a semi-main event on a pay-per-view. So that's where we're at. That's where wrestling is, by the way, in 1995. We have all the titles in one match, and then we got a pirate who stole a jacket in the second to last match. And then we got Dean Douglas in there as well. He's in another, co-main event of sorts, facing Razor Ramon. So yeah, and then the rest of the card is just shit. Some in the literal sense, because Henry O'Godwin is here. But that's just where wrestling is. Late summer, early fall of 1995 is fucking brutal, man. And if you've been following all my episodes with WCW, ECW, because remember, we're following all of this chronologically. So we've seen where we're at with WCW and the Dungeon of Doom, and upcoming soon, we got a show with monster trucks in the main event. They get ECW, you got New Jack and Public Enemy just mindlessly hitting each other with weapons, and then Tommy Dreamer and Stevie Rich. It's a shit show over there too. So 1995, some point, in the beginning, it kind of was charming. It was like, oh, this is fun. It's a new generation. But now it's like, okay, This is a struggle. It is fun though. It's always fun to watch, but man, it's just so obvious that the product is in a bad place, and it's always very fun to talk about. So it's good podcast fodder, if nothing else. But if you want to listen to that, if you want to listen to all that, the WCW, the ECW, the WWF, all the wrestling wars of the 90s, go to apronbump.com. You can go to the episodes tab at the top, and you can select Wrestling Wars of the 90s. And that'll bring you to all of the three major companies that I cover pretty semi-chronologically. Fucking asshole. And Cat is trying to make a run in here. But yeah, go check that out if you're a new listener and you want to hop back in the archives and check out your boy and all of my eclectic group of friends talking about the shit show that is 1995 wrestling. And we get into that deep here. And we get into it with my boy Matt from MattyDaddy Presents. You can check out his podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Check him out on YouTube as well. He covers football. He covers wrestling, current wrestling, old school wrestling. This dude does it all, and he's a very entertaining guy, as you'll see in the episode. So go check him out. All of his information in the description below. Follow him at MattyDaddyFF on Twitter. He's on all the social medias. He's a mover and a shaker, this Matthew. Go check him out. And yeah, let's get in your house, everybody. Can you fucking stop chewing that? This cocksucker cat. WWF in your house. 3 triple header with myself and MattyDaddy.
All right, let's try again.
Did I just get you too excited about Waylon Mercy? You just knocked your
all over the place. I quit.
Oh man. Well, once again, thank you for making the time, man, to come on here and talk a little bit about Henry O'Godwin and Waylon Mercy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, and I appreciate you having me. Like, it's just pumped up. I love old school stuff. I love history, nostalgia. So even though it's, pure shit at some points, it's fun to go back and just kind of dive into.
Yeah, there's a certain charm to this shit. It's like opening up a time capsule sometimes, and because it gets better like pretty soon after it. So it was. But were you watching? It seems like you're like a big fan of this era. Were you watching?
I'm 35, so this was right at the time. Like, basically, I remember turning on the TV one day and it was Big Daddy Cool Diesel, and he does a promo on Raw for like Tip of the Iceberg, and that hooked me, man. That was like, all over again from when you're a kid and you're used to the Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard, but the WWF is running on diesel power during this time, so
love it.
It's pretty cool, right? It's a pretty cool line.
And you're 27, right?
29.
29. Okay. So what made you dive into like going back this far?
So I've always because this is before my time, because I was born in '93. So, and I've always wanted to just watch the new generation because I had never watched it, and I started with Bret and Owen, WrestleMania 10. That's when I started, and I've kind of just gone chronologically. I never watched WCW. I was a WWF kid. I've never watched ECW either, so I'm watching all these kind of sequentially to kind of like get the feel of what it was like being a wrestling fan in the mid 90s, because I had never experienced it myself. So going back and watching all this stuff, it's so summer of '95 is a rough one for all companies, really.
Absolutely. So how did you start doing this? Has it always been a one-man show, or? Yeah.
I actually started out. It was about 2 years ago or so, 2.5 years ago. I don't remember. But I started out talking like about the current products. I would talk about, like a pay-per-view happened, and I would talk about it, or I would just talk about general, my thoughts on the wrestling product today. And found out after a few episodes that I wasn't really like, it was fine, but I wasn't like passionate about it. And then because I was already watching Attitude Era stuff, like just on my own, like not for the podcast or anything. I was like watching all the Raws and SmackDowns and pay-per-views, because that's when I grew. That's when I fell in love with wrestling. That's like my peak wrestling fandom. So I was just watching that. I was like, I'm already watching it. I might as well create some podcast content out of it. So I started like reviewing all those pay-per-views, and I was like, you know what? I kind of would like to do like 95 WWF, and then pilot like TNA, Ring of Honor, and now I have all these different timelines going on. But it's funny because you get like there's overlap too, like Billy Gunn's in like 4 of my timelines that I'm doing right now, and stuff like that, and stuff like how companies learn from each other as years go on, and you see like the progression of like even individual people over time, and just wrestling over time and how it changes. So it's kind of the idea of my podcast. It's kind of get like snapshots of different like big companies, small companies, and like through the course of like 4 different decades that I cover. So
well, dude, and mad props to you for staying with it. 3 years now, pretty much. Like, I know you putting out content every week or every 2 weeks.
Every week, every Wednesday, every bump day, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at you. Do you have any kids or a wife?
I have a fiance. So when the kids come, we'll see if I stick it to stick. But,
it's a lot, dude. I got 3
cats,
little
so
ones
I understand.
And a wife. So I started fantasy football going into 3 years, so about the same time. Did it by myself for a couple weeks, decided to start a brand, Fantasy Affair. Like when you're not with your wife, you're checking your fantasy. Did that with like 8 other people, realized I did way more than everybody else. And it was just real taxing. So from there, I've jumped around to other brands, but I started last November just doing my own content, mixing my wrestling and my football, not like necessarily on the same show, but just in one spot. Cause I got to the point, like, it's just my content, it's me. It's easier to find it instead of trying to run a couple brands and then teaming with others, and then they don't pull their weight. And then friendships turn into chores because other people aren't prepared, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. I was like, even in like school and stuff, I always hated group projects because there's always at least a few people that don't pull their weight. And I just like having control. Like if I wanted to not have an episode this week, I can do it. Or if I wanted to have 2 episodes this week, I could go different directions. I love it because it's being able to be like creative and
not having to commit every Tuesday night, every Wednesday night. Like if I don't feel like doing it this week, fuck it. Like
exactly. And I always love like I'm meeting guys like you, and like I've made so many friends doing this and having different guests on every week. So that's been like way more rewarding than I thought it would be. And it's been pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you what was not rewarding was watching In Your House 3 triple header. So, so you got a chance to watch the show, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Took notes. Yeah, I'm here for it. Saginaw, Michigan.
Oh man,
in your house. I missed the house giveaway a couple episodes past. I'm sure you covered In Your House 1.
In Your House 1. Is that the only time they ever did that?
I think so.
It feels like it was. We did have somebody knocking on the front door in this show, but we'll get to that a little later. But yeah, man, overall thoughts, because you were a big fan during this time, and I guess maybe you had a certain expectation, but after watching it, what were your overall thoughts on the show?
Honestly, man, like I love going back, and even the matches, there's certain wrestlers that stick out. It was like when I used to do it, like the Big Boss Man, he jumped off the screen a lot, even though he'd never be anything. But yeah, man, just kind of seeing these wrestlers like a Waylon Mercer, who was part of, the Skyscrapers with Sid, things like that. Just seeing how bad his back was, how he can barely move.
Dude, watching Waylon Mercy walk around. I mean, we might as well just jump right into this opening match here. So we got Savio Vega versus Waylon Mercy. I think it's probably the only pay-per-view match Waylon Mercy ever had. I think that's pretty fair to say.
Absolutely. Just fucking crazy. Like, cause this is, what did they keep on saying? He's like a Robert De Niro in that one movie. Cape Fear, I think.
Cape Fear. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's, I mean, nowadays in hindsight, the obvious comparison is Bray Wyatt, like early Bray Wyatt. You could see that was interesting. I thought the match was fucking ass cheeks, but let's be honest. But watching him and seeing kind of what you could see how Bray Wyatt developed his character based on this and just made it amazing. Whereas this was not it. I don't know. What'd you think about? Because there was like a pre-tape before the match. As like Waylon Mercy was cutting a promo out in some garden or some shit. He had a worm on his arm, and he was saying some stuff. I don't really know what he said. But he's like, So I'm gonna crush Savio like this worm on my arm. Bah! If you know what I mean. I guess that's his catchphrase. I don't know. Yeah, a weird gimmick. It didn't really work in 1995.
But it was, different than the Duke the Dumpster Drosky or these, jobs. This was like a cult leader, basically, that we're getting fed to, and we don't know really what's going on.
It could have been cool, but I don't think that the direction they were going in. It was kind of more colorful and kid friendly, and maybe didn't want to get super dark with it. It was just kind of weird, and plus the guy, Dan Spivey, for anyone unaware, one half of the Skyscrapers. We see the other half later in the show, but and I haven't really seen a lot of Dan Spivey's work. I did see, I've seen a few matches of his, but here in '95, I mean, his knees, his back, it's like watching Kurt Angle in 2019. It's like at any time this guy might just disintegrate into dust.
Yeah, just doesn't look fluid at all. Like just real junky. Like every time he gets hit, it's like he's putting on the brakes right before he gets hit.
Yeah, like what happened in here? So there's one point where Waylon, because he's facing Savio Vega, and he's going for a stun gun. So he's picking him up in a flapjack position and to drop Savio onto the top rope, but he tripped and it kind of just crumpled down, but it ended up following through with it, but it just looked clunky. And
what about where he picks him up like he's gonna do a back suplex and he just falls down straight down? It almost looks like he's gonna drop Savio.
Yeah, the fact that Savio got out of this match unscathed is and Waylon, I guess, at least as unscathed as he could be.
And if I'm correct, Savio's this is one of his first couple matches. He just comes out of the crowd and kind of helps out Razor in a match. Is that right?
Yeah, so he debuted at, I believe it was Inner House 1, I want to say. He's been there for a few months, but he is still fresh. And because he was in a whole thing he was teaming with Razor Ramon, and they were taking on Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie. But Jarrett and the Roadie just left, so that basically never happened in the eyes of WWF canon. So basically, he's brand new.
For all intents and purposes. Days working hard on the go.
I'll just go let you sing the whole thing. But because I don't want to talk about this match. But yeah, so Waylon is very unathletic in this match, to say the least. He does hit a sick brain buster, which I guess is what you were talking about.
Yeah, just where he picks him up. See, I thought it was an accident, so it might have been sick because it was.
You might be right, but in my eyes, I was like, that's a damn good brain buster by Waylon Mercy here. But Savio, he picks up steam. He makes his comeback. Savio Vega, his back suplexes and all his pins and whatnots. Eventually, Savio wins with the spinning heel kick. So the Puerto Rican superstar, or whatever his nickname was, gets the win here over Waylon Mercy, and we probably don't see old Waylon again after this. But yeah, good stuff, right? 5 stars? 4.5 stars, 6 stars?
Bad.
Yeah. Well, you can only go up from there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Weird move putting that as the opener, but I guess, looking at the rest of the card, don't have a lot of choices.
Well, and what was funny is because you just dropped your SummerSlam episode a couple weeks ago, 95. So I'm like, okay, I go over the SummerSlam 95 card, and I'm like, hell yeah, you're getting young, smoking guns, Triple H, and then you get to this card, it only had 4 wrestlers on the card that were on the SummerSlam card. So just kind of a mind fuck, honestly.
Well, also one aspect of this, and I should have brought this up in the beginning. Triple header is the tagline for this show, and it's called that because all of the titles are on the line in the main event. So all of the titles are relegated to one match. Therefore, you have to fill the rest of the card with with this shit.
Garbage.
So I mean, the main event was cool, and we'll get to it. But yeah, otherwise, smoking guns. I mean, there's no tag matches other than the main event. I mean, it's just singles match. But there's some characters that we get to see.
Absolutely.
So and a running thread throughout the show is that, and I meant to research this, but apparently Owen Hart, well, actually, you know what? I didn't need to research it because we find out later. Owen Hart isn't here, everybody. Jim Cornette finds this out, and we got Doc Hendricks backstage interviewing him. And he's like, where's Owen Hart? Where's Owen Hart? And Jim Cornette's being Jim Cornette. I don't know. He's in Michigan. You know how Jim Cornette is. And then so Gorilla Monsoon's there as well, who I guess is like the commissioner at this point. He's like, the match is gonna happen whether you want it or not. And then he basically tells Cornette to find a partner, or Yoko's gonna defend it against himself. So more on that later.
When we got Owen Hart, not trying to ruin it for anybody, but he actually had the birth of one of his children, so that's why he's late to the event. This whole storyline kind of transpires.
Is that true?
Yeah, gave birth, I guess, the day before, so he was running late to the event. So just kind of crazy how it works.
Yeah, well, it all turned out well, I guess. Well, I probably won't say that, but it something happened. I guess I'll put it that way. But boy, we got a barn burner. I know what you're all thinking. You're like, well, that first Skyscrapers match was good. I sure would love to hear about the second half of the Skyscrapers. Well, we got it for you right here. We got Sid versus Henry O. Godwin.
Pig Suey, Razorbacks, baby. Arkansas.
Yeah, well, got a little, Henry's got some Alabama goulash with him in a bucket. Are you familiar?
I don't want any part of that bucket, Kyle.
Do you have any? Have you had it before? Is that like a delicacy in your culture?
not exactly. Maybe if I'm going to the buffet at Barnhills, but yeah, not my style. But yeah, you can see it's everybody wants to get slop these days.
They sure do. Well, it's fun because he dumps it on people and they're like, "Oh, I got slop on me." It's silly. New generation. So we got Henry O. Godwin versus Sid. Basically, the loose backstory is that Sid, he's a part of the $1 Million Corporation at this point with Ted DiBiase and Kama and all those guys. Henry O. Godwin wanted to be a part of this because why wouldn't you want to? But he lost a match and Ted was like, I know, and he dumped slop on Sid or something on Superstars like the week before or something. So now we have this match, and the match is what it is. What do you think about Sid in general?
Dude, as a kid being around watching this around this era, Sid is an intimidating, loose cannon. He's scary, man. You can't be, he's just imposing. Do you not think Sid, I know you've seen the last couple, he's been in the main event, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is kind of a downgrade to go up against Godwin after being in the main event of 2 In Your House pay-per-views.
I guess nowhere but down you can go from being, fighting for the title. But I also, to the same point, maybe they're trying to push Henry O. Godwin. So maybe they're, as ridiculous as it sounds, maybe they saw something in Henry and they're like, let's put him in a big match with Sid. But Sid, man, so I agree with you. He's very imposing. The aesthetic, the visual is insane. I love his promos. I love listening to him try to talk.
Right.
But man, once the bell rings, I feel like he's just not good.
Well, it seemed like some of his transitions, when he'd hit somebody, he'd drop to his knees, or he'd do something just real goofy, or put his hands in the air like he's cheering. Right. I'm like, dude, you're a heel. That doesn't make sense. But like you said, his promos, same kind of thing. He has good intentions, but it just doesn't come out right. And you kind of see him he's this big imposing guy, and he's sometimes soft with his opponent, where he's barely putting him down in the position. I'm like, dude, you're ruining the match because you're being too gentle. We need that Ahmed Johnson, just beat the shit out of you.
That's exactly what I was getting at, because he's this huge dude. You expect him to just punch through the guy's head. But his kicks are shitty and soft, and his clotheslines are weak. And I don't even know if he did a slam of any sort, other than maybe did he do one in the finish? I don't even remember. But yeah, like you say, everything is soft when it feels like everything he does should murder a person. But
from soft, what should be soft, which should be hard, is really soft.
Is that why you yell at your penis sometimes when it's not working?
Blue Chew.
Trying to get that advertisement. But yeah, so the match is what it is. It's pretty rough. Hogg hits the slop drop at some point, which is a reverse DDT. And as he goes for the pin, Ted DiBiase pulls him out. I guess there's not a disqualification there for whatever reason. So Ted, he trips up Hog and then allows Sid to hit the leg drop and then hits the power bomb on Hog for the win. And then we got a good line on commentary. I think it was Vince. Finally, there's some justice in the world.
Jesus. And well, speaking of Vince, you have Jim Ross here, right? We haven't seen him on too many announcing booths with Jim Ross, with Lawler and Vince. It's kind of mucky. Like, just kind of like the matches, it's too much.
Yeah, it's almost like they were trying to transition JR into this role because maybe unless he did like very early. I think he did do some very early shows.
Right.
But this is his first pay-per-view in a while. I think he even like left the company for a while and probably recently came back. I forget where in the timeline that is, but yeah, it's a 3-man booth. It's King, JR, and Vince. And it definitely seems like they're trying to get Vince or get JR familiar with the audience, I guess, and vice versa. Right. So, but yeah, the third mic is such a weird position. It's like, even today, it always feels like the third guy is trying to like fit his shit in.
Yeah, it takes away from the flow, like, and then you got to worry about talking over each other, you know. Mm-hmm. Am I mentioning the moves? Am I talking too much about college football? What am I doing here?
That was JR's go-to at this point. He would like say how tall a guy is or how much he weighed, where he went to college, what position he played. Some things never change though, I guess.
When this is right before Sid takes his leave to go play softball too. I'm sure y'all brought that up, his softball career.
You know what? I don't think I've talked about Sid's softball career on this podcast. Why don't you inform the audience?
Yeah, just so he was a part-time wrestler, full-time softball player. So what he liked doing instead of being in the ring is he was hitting dingers on the softball field. So a lot of times he would get in trouble because they'd call him to work a match or something, and he'd be like, "Man, I got softball this weekend. We got a tournament. We're playing the St. Mary's School for Girls." And Vince is like, "Sid, you're supposed to be at MSG this weekend." And what would he say? "I don't know shit, cry baby." Just different promos between the two would be iconic. But yeah, Sid was quite the softball player.
I feel like Sid is too young and in shape to be a softball player. That seems like a thing you do when you retire.
50s, right?
Right, yeah. You open a beer with your buddies and you go play softball. Sid's like this. I'm just imagining him like in his uniform or whatever with all of his teammates and like this little old lady pitching to him or whatever. He just
7-foot dude, 300 pounds, just jacked muscles,
smashes the laces off the thing. Yeah.
So one more thing before we keep running along, baby.
Please.
So I'm not as used to watching 95 content as you. So this just brings me back to like the first thing I thought was Sid, just being kind of a fashion fanista. I was like, Sid's hair has evolved every time I see him. 92, he's got this like almost perm style. It's bushed out. Here he's rocking your 94, 95 mullet. And then when he finally comes back, it's like, you know, that soccer mom haircut. So it just kind of transitions every time I see Sid. He's playing with his hair, trying to figure out what fits.
Hopefully, maybe we find that out at some point. Maybe Sid will one day figure out
what kind of hairstyle he wants. It's tough, man. It's like when you go from a mustache to goatee to a beard and, you know, baby shaved.
Yeah. We all go through those phases, so we can't beat up Sid too much, I guess.
We are going on a tangent here.
That's, you know what? There's not a lot of talk about the matches, so we might as well. But I also made a note during this match. Just one last thing, like 95, like the crowd here. Maybe it's just this crowd, but it was also the crowd at SummerSlam too. Like they're amped for it. Like everybody is super over, no matter what. It's like these guys have to do the bare minimum to get a reaction, and sometimes they don't even do that. It's like every time Hog he would make a comeback, the crowd is with it, and then you give Sid, have him in a chin lock for 20 minutes.
This is the downtime of WWF, but the crowd, the faithful that's still with them, like they're not giving up. So it's kind of impressive to see the loyalty, brand loyalty they have when you have WCW on the other channel now. Yeah,
and we might as well bring that up too, because I think this is the first pay-per-view in the Nitro era of wrestling. Were you a WCW watcher as a kid?
I was. I'll tell you the exact moment. It was, the Scott Hall shows up on WCW because, as we'll
Mm,
talk about during this episode, Click, baby. The Click was running wild in WWF New Generation era. So
yeah,
when you have Razor and Diesel leave for WCW, that's huge. So
right.
not quite yet, but I knew, those established stars of Macho Man, yeah. And
Mm,
Kyle, brother, tell you one thing, dude. I
tell
was
me.
watching a little bit of WCW, but the Monday Night Wars weren't quite here yet.
No, WCW is definitely like, because I've been watching the early Nitros too, and they're definitely still figuring it out, which is interesting because like you said, when Scott Hall, Kevin Nash get there, everything changes. But before that, it's like still trying to figure out. They're the big boys though, right?
Well,
So
and as you pinpointed to 95, this opener, I'm not going into too much detail, but a year from now, when WWF still hasn't figured out the opening card, you have Nitro starting their show off with cruiserweights or
right,
pay-per-views. And that's the exact opposite of a Waylon Mercer match. Like you're getting nonstop, technical wrestling, but high flying.
yeah, like around this time. I mean, this is around the time when they're starting to bring out the cruiserweights. You have like Eddie
Right.
Guerrero and Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit are showing up on WCW, and even they like Macho Man, guys like that, guys that can work in the main event. Whereas here, I mean, you got Yokozuna and shit, but
Man, how he fell off.
he's a big boy here. But um, so speaking of big boys, we got a couple big boys in this next match. We got Bam Bam Bigelow versus the British Bulldog. This is a pretty random match, I think. I don't know if there's really any backstory to it, but British Bulldog has just recently turned heel. He turned on his former friend Diesel and has joined or I guess later in the show, he's joined Jim Cornette in his stable. And yeah, just kind of a dick. He's cut his hair, he's got different
Yeah,
tights, a whole new presentation.
whole new and that's what's crazy about because you have long haired Davy Boy with these almost these jorts, and now he's switching. I like the heel Davy, honestly. Doesn't he look like shows off his muscle mass a little better?
Yeah.
Kind of separates him from the old school Bulldogs.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah, it separates him from Dynamite Kid and all that stuff.
Right.
But you got Bam Bam Bigelow, who I'm a big Bam Bam Bigelow
He
fan
can move,
myself.
man.
But
He looks out of
yeah,
shape, but I bet you put him out there on the basketball court, and he's fucking on fire. Like just
yeah, susceptible.
agile as all get out.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so we got and there's still this like cutaways during the match where Jim Cornette is talking to various people, still trying to find a partner for Yokozuna, and he's talking to Sid. So it's like, oh, is it gonna be Sid and Yokozuna?
Maybe Mabel. Who knows?
Mabel, right? Yeah.
Can't get enough of him in the main event.
more. He's in a dark match actually at this show. It's actually like the real main event against the Undertaker.
So what was the deal? Why didn't we get the Undertaker here? Because that's like one of those
That's
gotta be there. Did anything happen at SummerSlam that made it where he couldn't wrestle or
no. So I well because he beat Kama at SummerSlam.
okay.
I know eventually he gets his nose or his orbital bone broken by
Right.
Mabel. So we're approaching that, I guess. If it's
Okay,
not
so
this
he
match,
should have been on the card.
it's so bizarre. Him and Undertaker and Bret Hart. These are two guys that are like so undercard the entire year, and it's bizarre to me because they're by far the best they got. But we're out
Right.
here with random
Diesel's
match, yeah,
When it's like you see this in early 90s with Bret Hart, where he's the world champ, but yet they give it right back to Yoko, right back to Hogan. So it's like we're
hmm
anointing you the guy, and then we're taking it away from you just as fast. We'll get there, but you know what I mean.
yeah, exactly. He loses it to Bob Backlund a few months ago, or I guess a year ago at this point. But crazy. But Bam Bam versus Bulldog, it's a fine match, I guess. There's I think Bam Bam, or no, yeah, from Bam Bam to Bulldog, it's like a suplex to the top rope, crotches him. It looked really nice.
Man, the moonsaults off the top rope, everything
Ooh,
he did just looked like it won that, and he's not a heel here. He's a face. You go from
yeah,
LT at WrestleMania, where you're like the most hated guy, you're getting national exposure, And then you just turn this guy face when you have, Razor, HBK, Bret Hart, Diesel as faces.
Yeah.
What the truck are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. The heel pool is a little weak here for sure. As we'll see in the Bret Hart match. But see, yeah, Bam Bam, he moves out of the way of the bonsai, goes for the moonsault, but misses. Bulldog hits a top rope headbutt, and then Bulldog hits a really impressive power slam onto a Bam Bam for the win. So British Bulldog gets the win here, and it kind of heated up at the end of the match, but ultimately it's a pretty forgettable match in my opinion.
Right. But out of the last, we're going on match 3 of the night. This had at least showed signs of, something, right?
Yeah.
You got power, you got agility. So it's definitely forgettable, but getting to see Bulldog in his prime, Bam Bam on his way out. And you saw Bam Bam still got it. So then this is kind of the first thing I wrote down was click issues. Click issues. Bam Bam wasn't a click guy and I'm sure you've talked about the click, HBK, Razor, Diesel, 1, 2, 3 Kid. They wanted to monopolize. So this is another guy who's got talent, but you're necessarily holding him back because you don't like him.
Yeah. Yeah. Does he goes to WCW pretty shortly, right? Or ECW?
ECW, and he has some killer matches. So
yeah. That's what I think about when I think of Bam Bam Bigelow is the stuff with Taz and all that stuff in ECW.
Yeah, and that's one of those things when you have Mabel in your main event or you have a Sid, you have Bam Bam who can at least work and he's intimidating. Why not have him go up against HBK or Bret Hart like we saw, he went up against Hogan in the late 80s. So it works. They just, issues backstage.
Yep. And he just main evented WrestleMania and it was a success. I mean, it was the best match on the card as far as I'm concerned. So it is what it is. But just in time to talk about Bob Backlund. I guess is running for president. Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yes, sir. Running from president. Backlund's another one of those guys from the 70s and 80s that was just on point. He was, a heavyweight contender. And now he's kind of been regulated after the Bret Hart feud to just a manager gig.
So you liked Bob Backlund, is what you're saying?
I didn't like him, but he was obnoxious, which makes you not like him. So that's good TV, right?
Yeah. Bob Backlund's just one of those guys I just never got. Like, he's before my time, but I get guys like Hogan and Andre and guys like that. Bob Backlund's just like, I don't know. He just feels like he's out here. He's using words like exacerbate and lexicon. I don't think he knows what they mean. He's just kind of saying them randomly and
throwing them around.
You're all lexicons or some whatever the fuck he said. He's babbling.
Just a weird character. He's definitely like kind of creepy, but the cross-faced chicken wing, like what a weird move, but it actually worked because it was just awkward. So not the worst, but not the best by any means.
So I'm watching this. He's like in the ring cutting this promo. I'm like, why is this a part of the show? Well, apparently, I guess he's going to be the manager of this next guy, Dean Douglas. For Dean Douglas versus Razor Ramon. Now, you talk about guys who suffered from the click. This is the tippity top of the mountain as far as I'm concerned.
Right. When this is the half of the dynamic dudes with what was his name? John Laurinaitis, the old what was he vice president or whatever at WWE? What was it? Talent relations, excuse me.
Yeah. You got Razor Ramon, who I always enjoy watching, RIP. But Razor Ramon always, I mean, he can make anything interesting, and he's trying to do that with Dean Douglas here. But Dean Douglas, who's freshly debuted, I guess right after, or maybe right before SummerSlam, and there was a whole altercation at SummerSlam where Dean, he was like critiquing all the matches, and he was critiquing Razor's match with Shawn, the ladder match. So Razor comes back, he's like, "Hey, bro, yo, Chico, what do you do? You got something to say?" And then he like walks away, and then Dean tries to sucker punch him, but Razor blocks it, punches Dean, and now we have this match. And then you have all the Gun Raws and Superstars. Dean's like costing Razor matches and all that shit. So Dean comes out, says that he grabs the mic. he says that he hopes Razor has done his homework because I don't know if you got this, Matt. He's a teacher, so doing his homework.
Such a weird gimmick. I think it also takes away from Shane Douglas because it's so stupid.
Because I've seen his stuff in ECW. I mean, he's great on the mic. He's a good dick. He's Ric Flair light, whatever you want to call him, but he's good. Like, he's solid in the ring, but he's this goofy teacher character. But
well, and then Razor's got this big beef where he tells like everybody backstage that Shane Douglas can't work, right? So that's like half the battle. But I mean, Douglas didn't look bad. I did notice they were talking a lot throughout the match. So maybe that was part of the problem is, you know, he maybe had to carry him too much and tell him spot after spot. But I thought Douglas had athletic ability. I thought he did good with like his moves. So I don't know here.
it seemed like it was like 8 or 9 minutes before Dean got any offense in.
Right.
He was just getting beat up for so long in the beginning by Razor. But eventually Dean, he gets the advantage at some point. He slams Razor on the floor after slamming him against the ring post. So now he has the advantage. He has him like in a camel clutch in the middle of the ring. Razor fights out with a electric chair drop. So he like gets up on his knees and stands up with Dean on his shoulders, and the crowd goes nuts. Is what I'm saying. Like the bare minimum stuff. Like the crowd just goes apeshit for
loving it.
The ref takes a bump at some point, and Razor, when the ref's down, hits the Razor's edge onto Dean, and the ref's down, so he can't make the count. But Razor still has him pinned. So 1, 2, 3 Kid slides in, makes the pin. He doesn't even have a ref shirt on, so not even pretending to be a referee. So Razor's like, "Hey, bro, what are you doing?" So he shoves him out of the ring. He shoves Kid out of the ring. And this allows Dean Douglas to roll up Razor, holds the tights. Refs magically, has come to, and makes the pin. So Dean Douglas gets the cheeky win, all due to Kid's interference, kind of, I guess, inadvertently. And then Razor and 1, 2, 3 Kid have like a pull apart after the match. So I guess they're building to some tension between those two.
When you've kind of seen this relationship build at this point, right? Because you've went back in your house, and he's kind of being by Razor's side after he gets that win over him. And then how is it like really seeing 1, 2, 3 Kid compared to the X-Pac we get a couple years later?
Yeah, I mean, it's different, but also not that different, because like some of the matches I've seen some of his 2005 matches in TNA, and that stuff is really good. It's slower, really? Like he's not as flippy as he is here, I guess, but he was still good, like in the mid 2000s. So, but yeah, Kid here, man. I mean, obviously the fresh face, but it's the same guy. You can tell it's the same guy. Yeah. But yeah, anything else on that match that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, man. I'm like you. I'm a Razor mark. He's probably one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. So seeing how he lays in punches is probably the best in the biz. Yeah. Just his, how you set up a match. It was a lot of offense, but I think when you talk about Bret Hart bell to bell as working with anybody, I think Razor's kind of up there too, where he could kind of put on a match, with a table and have a decent, at least make it entertaining. So props to Razor, even with Douglas. And like I said, it looked like it was a transition issue with move to move. And I loved how he kind of coached Douglas. Whatever he was saying to Douglas looked like it really kept this match going bell to bell.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, agreed. Totally. Especially like his punches. Razor has the best punches of all time, or at least he's up there for sure.
The bad guy.
The bad guy. But let me ask you a question. Did you ever buy a pair of Shawn Michaels glasses and hat?
Well,
you have the Shawn Michaels hat, but like the HBK, I don't know what kind of hat that is, but the
no, I got a couple times I was close to buying some chaps, but never the shades and the feather earrings or whatever. Wasn't that cool as like a 12-year-old?
Assless chaps, right?
Perfect.
I mean, that's the only way to wear it, as far as I'm concerned.
My mom says on Saturday, Yahtzee, baby.
Absolutely. Don't know where to go from there, but we got the two dudes here. So Doc Hendricks, let's talk about Doc Hendricks for a little bit. You said you had you kind of knew Doc Hendricks, or you knew somebody that knew Doc Hendricks?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm not gonna go on too long of a Doc Hendricks, aka Michael Hayes, aka the Fabulous Freebirds, doot. You know, so much good. Now he's a like head writer for SmackDown, head producer. So definitely a lifelong person. But back in the day, I worked at the Hilton. If anybody doesn't know, Matty Daddy, doot. I'm from Pensacola Beach. You know, love it here, but Florida, obviously. But Michael Hayes is also a free bird from Florida. Mom lives there, so I would see him all the time at the Hilton. And I remember the first time I met him, I was like, "Hey, you were Doc Hendricks." And this was before I knew of the free birds, everything like that.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, like, you know, he could kind of tell you wasn't his favorite gimmick, but we'd party our asses off. He lived the wrestling lifestyle even when he was at the beach, you know. Hey, he even one time he's like, "Hey, Matt, you shave my back for $20." I was like, "Michael, $20, baby." So luckily it was electric, but yeah, man, Michael Hayes, I have partied with so many times at the bar, in his car, you know, beers on ice, doot.
Do you save any of his back hair?
Hey, Kyle. No, but he did give me the Michael Hayes CD, which has, of course, "Why Can't All the Children Pray in School," which he sang to me in his car while we were both loaded. So you can't have everything you want, Kyle, with Doc Hendricks, but Michael Hayes is the fucking tits.
You know what? That's fair. Doc Hendricks he can eat my ass, but Michael Hayes is a cool guy.
Different character.
That's fair. You know what? That's fair. But he's here. He's hawking the Shawn Michaels hat and glasses, which prompts in the two dudes with attitudes to walk in. They're frustrated that Owen isn't here yet. They wanna win those tag straps, and which prompts Diesel to say they're two dudes with attitudes now, but by the end of the night, they're gonna be two chaps with 4 straps. Come on.
Can't hate on that, baby. That's
you can. I do.
You got to do something with this triple threat gimmick. What a terrible fucking pay-per-view name, by the way.
Triple header.
Triple header. Yeah, I'm like, okay, so anybody who's watching this for the first time, you hear that word, what are you thinking? Like a 3-way match, something like that, you know?
A man with 3 penises?
Yeah, something. Oh, 3 penises. Freak out. Too much penises for the Matty Daddy. Yeah.
Did I just hit your Macho Man button?
Macho Man is not here, but he is here in heart, baby. Yeah.
Oh yeah, brother. But let me ask you something. Are you ready to walk the plank?
Matey. I've always been a fan of the booty.
Well, I would have rather had the booty daddy here, but instead, we got PCO. So we got Jean-Pierre Lafitte versus Bret Hart. Man, this jacket. Have you ever had like a jacket stolen from you, or have you ever stolen a person's jacket?
Man, what a terrible. I feel like I'm just shitting on this thing. Yeah,
it's worth shitting on.
A leather jacket, stealing the jacket, taking, you know, shades from kids. I kind of see the animosity of targeting a pirate here.
Well, he's a pirate, so he steals.
Right, makes sense.
Makes sense all. And, you know, there's also another layer to it where the jacket was given to Bret by his mother. And the kid's glass, I mean, you know, he's stealing it from a kid. You can't do that, even if you are a pirate. So Bret Hart, so he's like, "Hey, Jean-Pierre, you might be a captain, but guess what? I'm Captain Crunch."
So bad.
It's so good. Bret Hart, man,
his promos suck. You got to get to that like 97 anti-America. Where he's just pissed off because Vince has fucked him so many times, to get to that point where you're like, okay, now this is the Bret Hart we need.
You know, when we start getting something real from him. But,
right. He's
mad at a pirate for stealing his jacket. So I guess, in all fairness to Bret, you know, what else can you do with it? But he's just going to make Jean-Pierre walk the plank. That's the words of Bret Hart. So match gets underway. Jean-Pierre, I mean, PCO, whatever you want to call him, he's pretty impressive here. Maybe it's just by comparison to what else we've seen on this show, but he's throwing out some pretty cool moves here. We got some cannonballs. There's one point where Bret Hart backdrops Jean-Pierre to the outside, and he just takes like a back bump on the floor. Whew. But
and he's blind in one eye. Like the guy can only see, so he's doing all this like, pretty much with a part-time vision.
Right. Exactly. So Bret, he fights back. He's getting all of his, atomic drops and his second rope elbows, all the classic Bret Hart stuff. But Jean gets advantage at some point, hits some sort of move, goes for the cannonball off the top rope, which is basically like a swanton bomb kind of deal. But the cannonball misses, and they both get back to their feet. They got some they're going back and forth with the punches, and at some point they both like clonk heads. They both fall down. Bret Hart locks in the sharpshooter from his back, which is fun.
That was sexy.
It was very sexy is the word. And
especially when you're talking about wrestling, dude.
I mean, how else can you talk about these sweaty men in tights, honestly? But Bret gets the win with the sharpshooter in a fun kind of way to put it on. So match is decent, and Bret gets his jacket back. So we all go home happy, right?
Right. And I think we set the bar so low at the beginning that now we're kind of gradually working up to better matches as we go.
Right.
From, the Bulldog, Bam Bam to Razor Dean. And now we're here with this pirate who you just expect it to be the drizzling shits because he's wearing an eye patch. Yet this guy's out here like taking bumps. He does like a front back flip or front flip, I guess that would be. Jesus Christ. Front flip to the back seat. What is going on?
There you go. You okay? You
Too
have a
much
stroke?
Michael Hayes, baby.
Okay.
The front flip outside and just landing on concrete. Or even how Bret, dives through the ropes at one point and falls backwards onto the same thing, the concrete. These guys are putting on a show to try to have the best match possible. So definitely underrated, I think, when you're looking at all the matches we watched tonight. I think they did a decent job.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said, this is a weird period for Bret Hart. I mean, we're fresh off of his match with Dr. Isaac Yankem at SummerSlam. He's faced Hakushi. So there's some good in there, but it's all in all, it's like these random, up and coming guys, and none really panned out long term. But it is what it is.
Did you remember a lot about Jean-Pierre?
No, I knew about this storyline. That's really the extent of that.
Well, so after I watched this match, and I thought, okay, this guy's a pretty good worker, and I remember the Clique hated him. Another guy, Dean Douglas, Bam Bam. Just never ends in the new generation. But he was part of the Quebecers who actually beat like the Steiner, the 1, 2, 3 Kid, and Bob Holly. They were 3-time tag champs. So, Paul Carl Ouellette or whatever did have a pretty good run in the WWE as a tag champ.
Yeah. And I know there's a story of it was like a live event house show where he was in the main event against Diesel for the title. Right. But I don't know if you know the story or not, but he didn't want to lose in his hometown. And that, there's deservingly so. Like that is annoying. So I get like having heat on the guy for it. But then, that's pretty much what put him on the shit list with the Clique. It's like, oh, this guy won't job for the champion, which, I see.
And what's your opinion on the Clique here? Because they are such good workers, but they are such a cancer backstage. What do you do if you're Vince? Like, just kind of role play here. If this was your company and you are the shits, but these are your best workers.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, your hottest acts, in my opinion, at this point, are Diesel and Shawn. So it's like, what are you gonna do? Fire these guys, and then Razor too, and Kid's on the up and up too. He's probably like the most promising like young guy at this point. Right. So it's like there's unfortunately, super over, super talented. It's it is super unfortunate cancerous. They would super cancerous, keeping guys like Bam Bam down and Dean Douglas down. So it's definitely a double-edged sword for sure. But yeah, unfortunate.
Well, and then you see, I know we're jumping around here, but what if Diesel and Razor don't leave? does a guy like The Rock or Stone Cold get that push that they're supposed to get because of that? So it's just kind of weird to see because The Rock had beef with HBK. So just, what if at a point?
Yeah. I mean, the butterfly effect thing, like if that changes, I mean, I think everything changed. I don't know if WCW really gets their,
Right.
momentum really. Because the NWO, Scott and Kev, that was the big thing that shot them to the moon. So if you don't have that, who knows? I mean, we still might to this day be in the new generation. So maybe it's for the best. But some may say we kind of are, but that's a different
We
podcast.
got lucky.
But yeah, so we finally, I know everybody's on the edge of their seat. We finally find out who Yokozuna's partner is going to be. It is the British Bulldog, who already had a match tonight, but I guess they only have 7 people on the roster, so it's got to be one of them. And it's a Bulldog, and they make it very clear that Bulldog, for one night only, is sanctioned as a tag team champion with Yokozuna. And that comes into play later, so just pin that, folks. But before that, there's a knock on the door, Matthew. Somebody's knocking at our house, in our house. And it's a Luncher Blaze who is modeling the triple header shirt because she's a woman. So, so she's out there modeling the triple header, the In Your House 3 shirt. And then she even, Vanna White's to the bushes. It's like, oh, what's in the bushes? Oh, it's the videotape that you get with your... if you buy the hat and glasses, you get this videotape free. And she's out here, doing the whole thing. Yeah.
So bad. And then she's what, the women's champ at the time?
Yes, she is.
And I'm guessing, Bertha Faye's not available for like their 5th match in a row. So just kind of weird, man. Just shows you what we were used to and now how far it's came.
Yeah. Actually, Bertha might be the champion at this point, but whatever the case is, they're like the only 2 women in the company, so it doesn't really matter. But we're only a few months away from the old dumping in the trash, and you watch this kind of stuff, and you can kind of get why. So,
well, then we have Bulldog. Right around this time, Lex is showing up on Nitro for the first time. So you have Bulldog in a transition point where he's now getting into the main event scene, turning heel. You have his partner where literally they were going up against like Allied Powers versus the Blue Brothers or something. So big steps for both these guys.
Yeah, and you got to think Lex leaving probably spearheaded, Bulldog being in the main event here, because before they were just a tag team, whatever. Sure, make them face the Smoking Guns in the undercard, whatever. But now Lex is gone, so now Bulldog is all of a sudden a big deal as a singles guy. So maybe it was the best decision for. And Lex is over in WCW fighting Hogan and Macho Man, so it worked out for both of them, I guess.
Everybody.
Yep. So we're here in the main event. It is the triple header, I guess. So all the titles are on the line. So it's a tag team match. We got the 2 dudes with attitudes. We got the WWF champion, Diesel, teaming with the Intercontinental champion, Shawn Michaels, versus the tag team champions, the British Bulldog and Yokozuna, Camp Cornette, as they would be known as. And so I guess if the 2 dudes win, they win the tag team championships, and if one of the other guys wins, they get the championship of whoever they pinned, I guess. So weird rules, but it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, Yokozuna is huge here. My God.
Massive. When Vince even mentions it, he's like, hey, he's getting bigger every day.
He does. Yeah.
It's almost like a poke at being fat there. Like at a point, and we see it, man. Like this isn't the Yokozuna of 93 to 94 where he's in the main event. Well, he's still in the main event, but he's not the same. Like he's eating his way out of a job. Rapidly.
He really is. I mean, he's moving better than he should be as a 600-pounder, but he's still a 600-pounder. So it's still, pretty rough. But he's got Bulldog there. Formerly he had Owen Hart as his partner to carry the brunt of the load of the work rate, I guess. But Bulldog in the slouch in his own right. So,
well, if we don't have Bulldog join Yoko, if Owen doesn't have a baby this exact weekend, do we ever get the Hart Foundation? Do we ever get Bret Owen, Davey, all as a team, because this spearheads Owen and Davey can be tag champs or whatever when Yoko gets a little too big to do business.
Right. Well, actually, I have a question about that after we talk about this match a little bit. So, because related to the finish, because I don't know what happens after this, but you can tell me. But the match is what it is. It's actually, it's a fun match. Like Shawn, especially like when Shawn and Bulldog are in there, they have some fun interactions there. Actually, in the beginning. So Yokozuna's on one corner, and Shawn is in the other corner. So Shawn challenges him to a sumo battle, which probably not the brightest move in hindsight, but so they like do the whole, I don't know what you call it, but they get in their sumo stances. But then Shawn just baseball slides under Yoko and like gets the advantage that way. So that was a fun little moment there. Diesel's in there. He's still at this point moving around really well. He's probably only 20 quad surgeries in at this point. So, but Diesel and Yoko, two big bastards, have some fun interactions. I think at one point Diesel takes out Yoko with like a shoulder block and a big boot. You got Bulldog with a really impressive stalling suplex on the Diesel. He like botches it a little bit at first, but he gets it back up, but then he hits it, so it's fun. Some fun double team moves between Shawn and Diesel. They had the deal where Shawn gets on Diesel's shoulder and then splashes. Yeah. He seems like got a ton of air on that too. I didn't think he was gonna reach him. But yeah, ultimately, Yokozuna goes for the bonsai drop onto Shawn Michaels, but misses. And then in comes Owen Hart, who I guess is now a father. So now he gets in there. He's back. And Owen comes off the top rope, but Diesel blocks him and hits the jackknife on Owen Hart and pins Owen Hart, who is not in the match, gets the win. And they win the tag team championships, even though they did not pin the tag team champions. So my question to you is, does this get reversed on Raw the next night or anything?
Which makes really no sense, because what was the point of this main event if you're just going to be like, oh, okay, well, none of that matters. We're just going to give it back to Owen and, Yoko. So to me, it was just, you're wasting a main event that had so much, the name wasn't great, but to know that Yoko could win the IC title, the world title, or Bulldog, it added a lot to it. And then you finally get, two dudes with attitudes, two dudes with all the straps. So pretty cool. But yeah, just weird that they would just turn it over the next Monday on Raw.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's like, what was the point of this all? And we could have had the titles.
We could have just watched Waylon Mercy and Savio Vega.
Dude, put them in this match. Make them the third team, as far as I'm concerned. Make them have all the titles. That's what this new generation needed, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, what'd you think about this match in general, man?
I loved it, man. This is, 22, 20, 30, 25 years later. Can't do math, dude. I remember this match as a kid and how cool it was. Diesel and Shawn Michaels. I remember the Owen Hart thing kind of coming in at the end. I remember getting this VHS at Blockbuster back in the day.
Hell yeah.
And watching this, and, Kyle, was a pretty good event. Hindsight 2020. Fast forward, 20 some odd years later, it didn't hold up. So, but yeah, it was cool to see Shawn, a young Shawn Michaels, a young Diesel. I'd say Diesel is probably in his prime here. Like, it doesn't get any better moving forward. But as far as
physical
agility,
pride, for sure,
moveset, I was all about Big Daddy Cool. He's kind of got me into it. And then Shawn Michaels, this is right before he really, gets that boyhood dream comes true. So it was really cool to see those guys, really cool to see Bulldog in a different, shade of paint, and then Yoko looking like Yoko.
Yeah. Yeah, Shawn's he's revving up at this point. He's, as Vince says, he's the most charismatic, the most flamboyant, and yeah. Diesel.
It's just crazy, though. Shawn, another guy, just the first thing when I saw him come through the curtain, flamboyant, just like, oh man, like this guy oozes charisma. And then I was like, well, he's not really cocky as a face, but then you mentioned that sumo stance. And I was like, I wonder if that was even planned or if that was just Shawn Michaels being a cocky fuck and kind of just throwing it in there to be Shawn Michaels, but it works.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels is another one. He was a little before my time because I've seen his stuff, after he came back,
Whole different
2002
person,
and
whole
beyond.
different style, man.
Right. So it's fascinating to watch him like in his rise here because it's so clear that he's a star. Like he comes off the screen, so fun to watch. And it makes all the sense in the world that he's considered the GOAT by a lot of people. But man, before, because that brings the show to a close. But I kind of want to touch on these dark matches a little bit. Obviously, we didn't watch them because they're dark, but I thought it was pretty interesting who was in them. So we talked about Undertaker versus Mabel was the main event, I guess. It happened after this match. Also, we got some debuts before the show. So we got Bob Holly versus Goldust. So Goldust making his debut here.
Oh, cow.
There's always a South Park Kyle that comes out.
What about this androgynous character, Goldust? What do you think, looking back at a guy like this, you're going to see him debut the next month? I don't want to get too into it, but just Goldust from a 1995 perspective.
Yeah, it's bizarre because he's almost not cartoony enough in a weird. It's kind of weird to say, but it's like a normal guy with just gold paint. Like he doesn't have the designs on his face. He doesn't have the complex, tights or whatever you want to call them. He's just like a weird androgynous dude that has a gold face. And it's very
might hit on you.
Yeah, but you know what?
That will hit on you.
Dustin Rhodes is a handsome man, so you could do a lot worse. So,
absolutely.
Speaking of handsome men, another dark match on the show was Skip versus Ahmed Johnson.
Ooh.
Oh man, I'm ready for some. I've wanted to watch Ahmed. I've seen the bits and pieces of him, but
so entertaining. Whether he was bad or good, Ahmed Johnson should be a national treasure. He's like Sid. He's got all the tools, but then you see him wrestling, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But two guys that could have been, big stars in the industry, Sid and Ahmed, if things would have just been a little bit more fine-tuned.
Yeah, for sure. But the show could have been a lot more fine-tuned. So that brings In Your House 3 triple header to a close. Any other overall thoughts? Anything we didn't touch on?
Dude, I enjoyed it. It's always fun to go a blast from the past, man. The hardest part of the ring tonight was definitely Kyle because In Your House 3 sucked. But this podcast doesn't. Dude, highly impressed with what you're putting out, man. SummerSlam 95 was on fire. Love your content. Love getting to kind of live that nostalgia route, whether it's TNA, WWF, whatever, St. Mary's School for Girls. We're living it. So thank you, Kyle, for having me on, dude. Hey, when it's live, I'm digging it the most.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, follow you, listen to you, watch you, kiss you on the cheek, wherever. Let everybody know.
Ooh, it's the Matty Daddy. I go hard and I go fast. Sometimes too fast, if you know what I mean. But I do wrestling. I do football content. Just a passionate fan. Ex-college football player. Never wrestled. Don't plan on it. But I love content. I love creating content, meeting cool people like you. If you want some more, personality, somebody turned up to 120, it's the Matty Daddy. All gas, no brakes. Check me out, Matty Daddy or Matty Daddy Presents. All sorts of wrestling yum-yums and a lot of fantasy football content as well. Thank you and good night.
Hell yeah. Go Red Sox.
Woo!
Once again, thank you to Matt from MattyDaddy Presents Football and Wrestling. Go check him out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Really good dude, has a really entertaining show and covers a variety of topics as we talked about on the episode. So go check him out. He's a good dude and he's a handsome fella and his beard is luscious. So what other I'm giving you all these reasons to check him out. Go do it. Check me out too at apronbump.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check me out on YouTube as well. If you are not aware, I do video versions of these as well as some YouTube specific content on there. Check me out on the TikTok as well. I'm getting back on the I'm ticking, I'm talking. That seems like the more fun social media platform nowadays. Twitter's kind of a shit show, but I digress. But yeah, check me out. Check Matt out. Check Obama out wherever he is if you want. That's about all I got for you. I hope those aren't roach droppings on my desk. You ever just like see some shit on your desk and you're like, man, is that from an animal, you know? It looks like pencil shavings, but I think it's like, let me take my gimmick here. Here's me. I don't know if you can see here. You can do the little. So like, what is that? That might be from my feet. I don't know. Hopefully, it's from my feet. Cat litter, etc. Just all my fiance just fucking eats food in the middle of the night and leaves crumbs everywhere. But that's a whole different podcast in itself. But yeah. Triple header, everybody. I think I can come up with one good blowjob joke. Man, nothing's popping up in my head. You know, I can't think of any blowjob jokes, man. I really suck at this. I'm hard.
Yeah.
And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing I guess. Let's get it started. It's the hardest.